This is Gene Lance on the Workers Beat Extra.
I think it is time for us to talk about a workers' party in America. I think the time has come that it's possible, that it could happen, and that we need to make it happen. There's a whole number of reasons. I think that many people believe that the Democrats fail to adequately represent the interests of the working class. I think that people do not feel that the Democrats are able to stop the slide toward fascism. Now, this slide toward fascism that we presently associate with the Trump administration has been going on for a long time, at least since the Reagan administration. And the Democrats have had some chances to stop it. Several times they've had control of Congress, and they've had the presidency several times. I think that Obama was a very good president. I think Biden was a really excellent president. But neither of them stopped the slide of this country toward fascism. So I don't think that the Democrats can stop fascism, even if they win the midterms in 2026. I think that low turnout in the elections is one of the reasons, or one of the evidences that we can see that shows that people have lost faith in this system, both in the Democrats and in the Republican Party. There was an article in the Washington Post in this past week saying that independent and third-party voter registration is growing, largely at the expense of the Democrats. Both the Republicans and the Democrats are losing new voters, new voter registrations. There are more of them are signing up for independent parties or for the third parties, but it's the Democrats that are losing the most. And here's one from my own area. I live in Jasmine Crockett's area in her congressional district, and she has dropped her bid for the top oversight committee post. That was in the Dallas Morning News. She said that there was leadership resistance. Well, the resistance is coming from the traditional Democrats who do not want to see the newer, younger, and more aggressive Democrats rise in power. That's why, in my opinion, Jasmine Crockett did not get this good committee appointment in Congress. Data shows that voter registrations are slipping. Republicans are ticking down as independent and third party expands. As of 2025, 32% of registered voters across the dozens of states and territories with reported data chose not to affiliate with either the Democratic or the Republican parties, and that is up from 23% in 2000. So between 2000 and 2025, they went from 23% of the new registered voters up to 32% of the new registered voters. Something also much more significant happened. Two major labor leaders left the Democratic Party National Committee, DNC. Randy Weingarten of the American Federation of Teachers and Lee Saunders of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, both very large unions, over 1 million members. They both quit the Democratic National Committee, saying that it is not doing enough to, quote, open the gates, end quote, and win back the support of working class voters. In other words, they're not doing a broad enough approach. At the same time, Bernie Sanders is going around saying that in the midterms that are coming, that Democrats should completely divorce themselves from the billionaires and stop taking their money. I think that's significant, and I'll get to more about that in a minute. Even though he got the most votes, a Democratic socialist who won the most votes in the first round of the Democratic Party primary for New York mayor, even though he got the most votes, he was denounced by major Democratic Party spokespersons and they prepared to run the so-called moderate Democrat, Cuomo, as an independent. In other words, they're going to run against the person who won the Democratic Party primary, because they do not want to see these newer, younger, and more aggressive young people who are reaching out and doing more to reach out and are more satisfactory to the working class. They don't want to see them win. And the traditional Democrats are opposing them. People no longer get their information from the major parties. They get it from their phones and from social media, etc., especially young people. There are at least two ideological opponents of starting a workers' party. There's two arguments against it that come from the left. People who say that they're for the working class or they're even for socialism would still argue against starting a workers' party. And one of their arguments is that it is far more likely and more possible to reform the Democratic Party. Now, that's what Bernie is trying to do. And that's what Robert Reich is trying to do with all of his stuff that he posts on social media. It's all about reforming the Democratic Party. And the other argument is that we don't need a workers' party, because the American people are already ready for revolution. They're ready for socialism. They're ready for dramatic change today. They don't need a stage of a workers' party. I'm going to skip that argument, because I don't think that the American people are a bunch of revolutionaries. I don't think that, even though we had 5 million people at the last big national day of marching and protesting, even though they were in 2,200 different protests, I don't think that that means that they are ready to completely establish a whole new system and have a revolution in the United States. I think they're going that way, but I don't think they're there yet. I think they're looking for an electoral solution. The only electoral solution being offered to them presently is the Democratic Party, and they're not happy about it. If you listen to the speeches, you can hear people boo when the Democratic Party comes up, and when somebody runs down the Democratic Party, you can hear people cheer. Bernie Sanders and Robert Reich believe that they can transform the Democratic Party. Further, they believe that they can implement positive electoral reforms. This is not a class analysis. A class analysis goes like this. The billionaires finance and control both of the political parties in the United States, and always have. The billionaires shift their money from one to the other depending on what's happening and what their needs are and what they think they can get away with. And there are differences between the parties, but both of them are largely financed and owned and controlled by the billionaire class. I don't think they're going to give that up. This whole idea that you can reform the Democratic Party kind of relies on the idea that the billionaire classes doesn't know what we're up to, that we can pull one over them. You know, we can pull the wool over their eyes, or we can do something that they don't want done without their knowledge. This argument has been going on for well over a century as to whether or not we can just reform what we already have, or if we have to take dramatic and unusual action and do something entirely different. I think it's time to do something entirely different. The question is not so much whether or not it would be a good thing. I think I could win that argument very easily, because there are many good things that could happen if we had a workers' party to vote for. Workers would have an independent political voice that would provide a platform for workers to voice their concerns and advocate for policies that directly benefit us. We would be able to address economic inequality, which has gotten worse and worse and has become the very source of all the problems in the world. The economic inequality, in other words, the fact that the billionaires keep piling up the money and the share that the workers own is getting smaller and smaller. More than that, a workers' party could have democratic accountability. In the two capitalist parties today, the candidates pretty much ignore their parties. The party may have all these platforms written down, they're going to do this and they're going to do that, but when the candidates run, they ignore it and make up their own platform as they go along. And it's not a good platform for working people. Another good thing about a workers' party would be that it would build class unity. People need to know that they are in the working class and that they have things in common with other workers that they do not have in common with the billionaire class. So a workers' party would give us a lot more unity than we have now, and it could facilitate social change. Now, the arguments against it is that it would just be very, very hard to do, and in that the two-party system is so ingrained and so much a part of our laws that it just couldn't be done. I think that's not true. I think, for one thing, some political operatives recently, and including Donald Trump. Donald Trump's probably the best example of somebody who did not have to rely on his political party for money, or even to run his communications program, because he did it on the internet. He raised his own money. Obama did the same. Obama was not the first choice of the Democratic Party when he got the nomination. And other people, AOC is a good example. She raises all kinds of money on the internet. The Democrats run against her all the time to try to keep her from winning the Democratic primary in her own district, and she beats them every time because she can raise her own money. People no longer depend on the political parties for money, and they no longer depend on the political parties for information. So that's why I think it's much more possible than it has been in the past. The question is not so much, is it a good idea? I think I could win that argument easily. The question is only this: is it possible? Is this the time? Is there a door opening for a workers' party in the United States? If there is, we need to get everybody jammed into that opening and get that door opened wider and get a political party that really represents working people.
This is Gene Lance on the Workers Beat Extra.